Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sam. I'm with Netregistry, and I'm going to be doing the webinar today on improving your website conversions. This has been basically the fourth webinar that Netregistry has conducted, so hopefully we'll keep doing these as we go on. In the next 60 minutes, I'm going to be talking about mainly about website conversions, what we need to look at, what is important, and so on. Before we get into the actual issues with why your websites don't convert, let's first have a look at what kind of online marketing that most people use. Because what happens is that the way people react online is the same way they react offline. So nothing actually changes. The customers are still the same. The only thing is that when someone goes online to make a purchase or to inquire about a product, the website is the only person that they interact with, unlike a store where you can go and speak to someone and get the right kind of answers. With most businesses, what used to happen is that everyone used to focus on being on the first page of Google. That is what that was the biggest objective maybe 2-3 years back. Any business I spoke to said that I wish I'm on the first page of Google, because if I'm the first page of Google, I will get a lot of business. But the fact is that it's not just being on the first page of Google. Okay, you can even not be on the first page of Google, but you can still get more sales if you do the right thing. Before I get into the webinar, I would just like to actually maybe ask a question. It's for me to actually understand what kind of people I have in the audience. It's quite important to understand what your customers do in terms of is it difficult, do you get a lot of people coming onto your website? Because with most businesses, what happens is people tend to focus on increasing the number of unique visitors, but it's really a challenge. Imagine if you're getting 500 unique visitors a month to your website and you're getting 5 sales out of it. In order for you to, there are two things you can do. You can either increase the number of unique visitors from 500 to 1000, where you get 10 sales, or you can actually increase your conversions, where instead of 5 sales from 500 unique visitors, you should try to get 15 from those 500 people. So rather than focusing too much on driving the traffic to your website, I think the focus should be around what will make someone take a decision right away. Okay, that's great. So I guess with most of the people around, very few of you guys do actually everything in terms of Google AdWords, Yahoo, Facebook advertising, search engine optimization, and so on. So it's a kind of a option there, where you don't miss out on. So you got to make sure that if you're doing your online marketing, you got to be looking at getting someone to your website today to make a purchase, and that could be AdWords. Looking at social media optimization has a long-term strategy where some people would do a lot of research before they hit the buy button. And then social media is a new thing. It's all about getting your satisfied customers to recommend your business. So it's really important that you actually balance these 3 forms of marketing to get a better result. I just want to make sure that my voice is loud and clear. Is there still anyone in the audience who can't hear me? Okay, great. Thanks. So when you look at online marketing, you can talk about search engine optimization, you can talk about Google AdWords, you can look at social media. Yahoo advertising also is worthwhile because, if you're doing Google AdWords, the average cost per click today is increased drastically. So sometimes, it'll be worthwhile to consider Yahoo pay-per-click option as well, because the same cost per click on Yahoo would be 1/4 than what you would pay on Google. So if there are potential customers going on to Yahoo from your point of from your business point of view, then end of the day, anyone who clicks on Google or Yahoo comes to your website, it's still an inquiry. So if you're spending money on Google AdWords, don't just keep yourself restricted to Google AdWords. Look at where your customers spend time. If your your potential customers are spending a lot of time, let's say on Facebook, then maybe it's a good thing to spend 70% of your budget on Google, maybe 20% on Facebook, and 10% in Yahoo advertising. End of the day, people will react to your ads when they actually are either searching for something or spending time reading information and so on. So over the last couple of years, we've seen that there are certain industries which benefit from Facebook advertising and certain don't, especially if you're dealing with products which are kids products, baby products, wedding products. All these products, they would get you a better click-through rates on Facebook, because that's where you go and share your wedding, your kids party on Facebook with friends and so on. But if you're providing a service which is a decision is a long process and so on, then maybe Facebook is not the right area to advertise on. So if you've not looked at these different options, I think it's a good thing to spread your options and look at, okay, not only focus on Google only, but look at the other platforms as well. What's also important is that as business owners, we look at driving more and more traffic to your website. We talk about putting everything that we know is good on a website, but sometimes that could be a bit too much for your customers. You got to understand why customers are coming to your website in the first case. Okay, it's like if you're searching for something today, let's say if you're searching for a new insurance policy, there are certain things that you are looking after. You want to be interested in terms of what is the coverage and so on. So imagine as yourself, if you go onto a website, there are certain things that catches your attention. The same thing happens to your business as well. So what's really important is that to see what would your potential customers be after, and make that highly visible. Okay, it's not the number of visitors, it's about how qualified those visitors are and what they do on your website. One of the good things to do, and I think this is what we do within Netregistry also, is try to see how do people react to your website. I think a good thing might be for you guys to do is to walk across to, let's say, your neighbor and say, hey, can you go on to a website and do a purchase for me, and just see exactly what they do, let's say, when they go to your website, because that's what you need to understand. You need to understand how does someone look into your website and how do they react to it. Do they find products much more easy? You're so used to seeing your website every day that you tend to overlook all these small things. Things like, is your telephone number in the right place? Have you kind of answered all the possible questions that people might have before they make a decision? I mean, people who go onto websites, including yourself, you're more concerned with are you getting the right solution, or the company that you're choosing, do they provide the right kind of solution? One of the other biggest mistakes that most website owners do is that we only worry about, are we getting sales or not? Okay, now that's kind of, it's important, but what's really important is all the other bits of information. Okay, most people, when they look at Google Analytics, all they look at is, how many unique visitors have I got onto my website, or what percentage of, my visitors are coming from Google or search and so on. What's also important is to understand is, of the people who are coming to your website, how many of them are, let's say, repeat customers. Because what's interesting is that if a lot of people are coming back to your website, that means that's a good sign. So they have come to your website initially, they didn't take a decision, they looked around, and they've come back to you. So you have to look at your data on your web stats much more in detail, not just the number of unique visitors. You got to look at right from your bounce rate, which are the other websites that are recommending business for you. If there are certain directories that are driving traffic to your website, that's good, that's kind of free directory. So what are the other directories that you could be listed on, and so on. So don't just go after you looking at what your unique visitors are, or where you stand on Google. What's also important to understand is what are the other factors that could contribute to it. Maybe a good thing to do is to actually set up goals on your analytics to say, okay, how many people came to your website and actually went and looked at your gallery or your product page? How many people came to your website and actually managed to reach your contact us page? Because imagine if there are 50 people going to your contact us page and you only get 5 inquiries, then there must be something wrong with the contact us page. So you have to go and look into those minute details if you want to improve your conversions. So one of the biggest challenge, I guess, with marketing in general is we talk about return of investment. So there's always been talk about you get return of investment on Google AdWords. Okay, nowadays it's also easy to do a return of investment on social media, but you need to know how to measure it. Okay, if you do not, if you're not able to measure your return of investment on any of your marketing activities, then you will not know whether it works or not. It's like how Yellow Pages was. Maybe a couple of years back, you had no clue as to how many inquiries came to you because of Yellow Pages, unless you actually asked the person, where did you come to know about us? But today, thanks to Google Analytics, you can actually find out the number of people coming from Yellow Pages online onto your website. So any form of marketing you do, whether you do email marketing, whether you do search engine optimization, Google AdWords, or social media, you got to find a way of measuring, how successful it is. What's the cost of getting a potential customer to your website. I've tried to keep information as non-confusing or non-technical as possible, and basically put in information which is very simple things that we tend to overlook. For instance, a lot of times when I speak to customers, they want to get all the potential customers in the market. So you can go after everyone, but then it's not going to help you. So when you're trying to set up a campaign, whether it's on Google AdWords or if you're doing search engine optimization, don't go after the most generic keywords, because those generic keywords are not buying signal keywords. They're not a keyword that someone would type in when they're about to take a decision. Okay, if you got a specific product and you feel that there's a specific market for it, or you got a specific segment that you want to go after, make sure that that is a segment you're targeting. You can go after everyone, but then the results are not going to be as good as if you do more of a segmented approach. And you can even keep working your keyword strategy in terms of maybe if you're doing Google AdWords, a good thing to do is to break up your budget to go after specific keywords, long tail keywords, and maybe a couple of very generic keywords, so that you don't get just one type of traffic. Now what's really important is to understand what do we mean by conversion rate. Conversion rate is more about of the amount of people who come to your website, how much of them actually take a decision. The decision could be to fill in an inquiry form, it could be to subscribe to a newsletter, or maybe to make a purchase. Okay. Nowadays, because the number of websites that have come up, people surfing on the net are becoming extremely impatient. So for instance, if in a day you're actually getting, let's say, 2 online orders, it doesn't mean that there's 2 people are coming to your website. The 2 online orders would have resulted through 100 people coming onto your website. Because by the time people come to your website and by the time they finish the entire transaction, a lot of people tend to drop out in that process. So if you want to improve your your sales, what you got to look at is how do you reduce the number of people dropping out through the entire process. So conversion rate is nothing but it's a measure of how many people actually came to your website, and out of that how many people actually took a decision. So the higher the conversion rate, that means you are going to sell more. Now there are different ways to measure conversion rates. You can, if you're doing Google AdWords, it's much more easier to measure conversion rate because you've got your daily budget, you know the number of clicks, you know the cost per click, and you know how many people actually bought from you. If you're running Google AdWords, it's really important to set up ROI tracking, be it sending them to a landing page, or if you got e-commerce, making sure that you're able to track every order that comes in, where did it come from. So you got to ask yourself as to what's your current conversion rate. Is it 2%, 5%, or 10%? For instance, let's say if you're doing Google AdWords, okay, the market conversion rates would be anything between 2 to 5%. That's if you're taking someone to your website. But imagine if you had a very specific landing page where there's no other distraction. It is simply the call to action of someone searching for a specific product and landing onto that page. Your conversion rate will increase. So depending upon what form of marketing you're using, you got to make sure that you're taking people to the right place. Okay. The last thing you want to do is, let's say if you're searching for something, you search for a specific product or a model number, and what you land up on is a home page of a website. Then you got to go and practically search all over the website again. So if you want to increase your conversion rates, there are different places where you can improve your conversion rate. As I said, if you're doing a Google AdWords, make sure that your ads have some kind of call to action. The best way to attract someone on Google AdWords is either based on price. If you got a price advantage, use that on your ad description. If you got a brand, use your brand name has a point of difference. Alternatively, you can talk about a value add service that you provide. It could be providing free quotes, turnaround within a couple of hours, or unlimited support, or 24/7 support. The next thing to look at is your homepage. When someone lands up on your homepage, are you giving them enough information or giving them enough reason to go beyond your homepage? If you land on a homepage, and imagine if the homepage doesn't give you a lot of information, what is the chance that people are going to wait and go beyond the first page, second page, and so on? As people start navigating through your website, their level of interest might go up or go down. Okay, so that's why on e-commerce stores normally the dropout rates are pretty high. So out of every 100 people who go into e-commerce store, less than 10 actually land up making a purchase. So that goes back to saying, what is the shopping experience? Are you asking too many questions? Are you making people fill in unnecessary forms? Are you asking so much of information that it's delaying the entire process? Okay. If you look at your product page, how good is your product page? Is it easy for someone to read the information and take a decision? If you got different variations for your product, is it easy for someone to say, I need that product, add that to the basket, and so on? Now when we look at the factors that go under across conversions, there are a lot of things that you can look at. Like you can do what you call as an A to B testing. So by it's basically showing either using different kinds of ads to see which message actually works better for you. One of the other ways to do is that even if you do not have a large budget for Google AdWords, a good thing to do is to use Google AdWords to test the market. You don't have to keep doing Google AdWords, but if you do Google AdWords the right way, you'll come to know which keywords will really convert for you. And this is a challenge with search engine optimization. Search engine optimization is an extremely long process. 4 or 5 years back, it used to take 6 to 9 months. Now the average time is around 12 months. So imagine you do search engine optimization on certain keywords, and after 12 months you realize that those keywords don't really convert for you. It's a total waste of time, because you've gone through the entire process. So maybe, if you want to improve your conversions, whether you like it or not, it'll be a good thing to maybe spend a couple of your marketing dollars on Google AdWords. Not for a long time, but maybe, 4 to 6 weeks or 4 to 8 weeks, at least to get a better understanding about when someone lands on your website, what do they expect. The next thing that also has been helping a lot for improving conversions are live chat. Sometimes, in certain industries, people can't just take a decision straight away. They've got a couple of questions they would like to clarify, and that's where live chat really helps. Imagine if you don't have live chat and someone wants to buy a product, but they had 2 or 3 questions to ask you, and it's 10 in the night, they can't give you a call. They have to send you an email. You might reply back to them next day. That's a large delay in time, Rather, what would someone do is they would go onto someone else's website and see, have their answers been, do they have the answers for what they're after? And if they have the answers, or there is live support, the more likely that they're going to take a decision out there. Okay. At Netregistry, for instance, what we realize is that if by adding live chat, it helps clients to take their decision, and there could be small doubts that they would have about a product or service, that can be addressed straight away, and then that increases the conversions. The next thing we're going to look at is more about web and your analytics. Are you measuring it properly? Do you know where people are dropping out from their buying process? Okay. The other thing we're going to look at is website usability, in terms of how user-friendly is your website. Is it easy for someone to go and make a purchase? It's a good thing to ask of someone within your family to go and say, can you go and make a purchase from my website, and see how long it takes, or what are the things that you would have assumed that everyone will do it, but not really go the same process. It's really important to see how would someone react to your website, because if there are issues, if there are things that are not very clear, no one is going to continue beyond that particular stage. What also is important is to try different headlines. It's just like, treat your online business like an offline retail store. On retail stores, you keep on changing your display so you can have more people walking in. That's exactly what you got to do with your website and your online marketing activities. If you're using, again, any kind of AdWords or whatever it is, keep changing your description. See whether what attracts people. Okay, give different offers. Talk about giving guarantees for a product if you can afford to. Okay, a great thing to do is to maybe add a testimonial onto your website. It just reassures that there are other people also using the product. Okay, don't try to stuff your website with a lot of information. Okay, you got to understand today a website helps you in 3 different stages. The first stage is helping people take a buying decision. When someone is taking a buying decision, it's really important that you give them enough information and not overload them with a lot of help or a lot of information. The next stage is the buying process itself. So you got to make sure that it's a very simple, easy process of what's happening and how they can proceed through checkout. And the third stage is the after sales effort. That means once someone makes a purchase, there are normally frequently asked questions, concerns, support issues. How easy it is for someone to get in touch with you. Because if it's not just about getting the sale. Once you get a customer, thanks to social media, you can get maybe 5 of their customers, their friends, to buy from you. So how do you actually use those social media platforms to get those additional sales? There's a big push in social media. Everyone is talking about social media, but very few people know exactly how to use it or what needs to be done. Okay, social media is not about going on to Facebook, Twitter, and saying you're having a special or whatever it is. That's the wrong way to use social media. Social media is by convincing your existing customers or someone who's just planning to buy a product to share their experience with their friends and within the community. Okay, most people like to go to social media because they feel that they're going to get a non-sales kind of approach, or they're going to get feedback from people who either use the product and so on. If someone buys a product from you, if they are happy with you, find a way of encouraging them to go onto social media and share their experience. It could be in a way of saying, listen, if you feel that we've done good service for you, how about sharing that, the experience with someone else, and in return, you could give them something. One of the other things also is to offer a lot of choices. Sometimes people are not ready to take a decision. So if that's the case, a good thing to do is to give them an ebook or provide them some white paper, so it will help the buying process. If you're selling a product which is off the shelf, you don't need to have much of white papers around. But if you're providing a service which is kind of a solution and which people will not buy straight away, then that's where your ebooks or how to use guides or white papers would really help. Am I still loud and clear? Okay, wonderful. Now, one of the other things is, just like a sales, like a call center, when a call center agent calls up a potential customer, they have to create a demand and an urgency for someone to say, yes, I want to make a purchase. You need to also have that on a website. Because if you can give someone an offer which says, if you buy the service in the next 2 hours or 4 hours, here's a 10% discount or whatever, it really works. It's worked fabulously well for Netregistry. We run promotions which are based on a time frame. So we would offer 20% discount on domain names, but that offer only runs for 2 hours or 4 hours, and it has worked extremely well for us. So when someone comes to your website, the last thing you want them to do is that not to take any action. Okay, I'm not necessarily saying that every person is going to make a buying decision or going to make a purchase, but maybe if they're not ready to take a decision, offer them something that allows you to go get back to them. It could be an EDM that they can subscribe to, a newsletter, or they can download a PDF document and so on. There's always a cost involved of getting someone to your website, whether you use social media, whether you use search engine optimization, whether you use Google AdWords. And imagine if people come to your website and they walk away without doing anything. It's a lost opportunity. What also is important is today is that not only text, a lot of times we've kind of become extremely lazy and we love to watch videos. You'll be surprised the amount of traffic that goes to YouTube. It's practically the second most busiest website today, so if you could have videos on your website. The videos could be about testimonials. It could be about how to use the product. It could be maybe if you're a business owner, your service provider, you could talk about what's your point of difference or what's your unique selling point. As far as the video is really small, it's a good thing to get in front of someone. At the same time, even audio actually adds value onto it. If it's about giving a preview of a webinar or whatever, it's really helpful. There are a couple of softwares that are there today which can actually help you track where people are clicking on your website, or what are they looking at, because that's another way of finding out what part of your website is working, homepage is working well, and what is not working well. Nowadays, a lot of people are starting using videos not only on their website but also on their landing pages, because a video can add more value than simple text. There's been a lot of talk about search engine optimization, and there are thousands of companies doing search engine optimization. But then search engine optimization is all about making your website search engine friendly and trying to get you on the first page on Google. There's a next generation which is called as conversion rate optimization. That is all about saying, okay, you're getting a decent amount of traffic. Okay, how do you get more sales out of this traffic? So it's a matter of how do you actually change it. So just like search engine optimization, conversion rate optimization, or we call it a CRO, is a new SEO product. It's more about, it's just not, it's not a one-off thing. You have to constantly keep on fine-tuning your website to improve conversions. So it's just not driving people to your website. It's about people who come to your website, how do you get more sales out of it? You would see this coming up more and more in the next couple of months, where more companies will come to you and say, we will help you increase your conversion rates. So there is this new wave of, online marketing companies talking to you, not about just driving people to your website. It's about how do you convert those people better, or how do you get more sales out of those traffic that you have. Frankly speaking, it's much more difficult for you to today double your traffic as compared to increasing your conversions. You rather spend your effort increasing those leads or those unique visitors into conversions, rather than trying to go after more and more unique traffic. One of the interesting thing I've come across in the last couple of years is that a lot of people do Google AdWords, and believe me, 70% of them have no clue how it works. Most people are still under the impression that if you pay the highest, you're going to be right on top. And that's not how Google AdWords really work. Google AdWords looks at a couple of factors. You also need to understand is that it's in Google's interest that if someone clicks on an AdWords, the user experience is good. Imagine if you go onto Google and click on a couple of AdWords and those results are totally hopeless. You'll stop clicking on it. So Google makes sure that it's just not the price, it's a combination of a couple of factors. So if you're practically managing your Google AdWords on your own, you have to focus on your quality score, okay? Because that is important. Okay, the higher the quality score is, Google is going to like your ads better. As your quality score increases, your price automatically starts going down. So it's not about saying that if you pay the highest dollars, it's going to be right on top. It's all driven by what's your quality score. And quality score is nothing but it's a combination of couple of factors. It's a combination of how much you're ready to pay, your cost per click. It's your combination of your click-through rate. That means if Google displays your ad in a day, let's say 1,000 times, how many times those ads really get clicked? Because if your click-through rate is really low on your ads, there's no point Google displaying those ads, because they're not going to make any money out of it. Then is the quality of the ad. That means, do you have a good call to action? Okay, or do you have a unique selling point that people are going to click on? And finally is the load time. The last thing you want is, imagine someone clicks on a Google AdWords ad campaign and it takes maybe 30-40 seconds to load. So Google looks into all those factors and rates your quality score, and then decides on, even if someone has got a high quality score, Google is happy to take less money from them as far as the user experience is good. What also is important is that making sure that your website is search engine friendly. That means it's easy for the search engines to index, especially if you got an e-commerce store. The moment you launch a new product or add a new product to your e-commerce store, it has to get quickly indexed by Google. Otherwise, imagine if you are selling e-commerce products, let's say you're selling products which keep on changing every 2 or 3 months time. By the time Google picks up your website, if it's a couple of months back, you're not going to get any sales out of it. So you got to make sure that you've got a nice XML sitemap. Google keeps indexing your website. The more pages of your website get indexed, the more information Google has about your business. So apart from conversion, you also got to look at some of these factors. For instance, you got to look at the look and feel of your website. It's getting more and more important today that you need to have a professional website, because you've got a window of 5 to 6 seconds to get someone's attention. In that 6 seconds, if you do not tell people who you are, what you do, or why they should consider you, they're simply going to hit the back button and go somewhere else. So whether you like it or not, you got to make sure that your website is professionally designed, or at least has got the right call to actions, the right structure, and so on. Some of the other factors that is worth considering, which is really important, is when you look at the navigation part on your website. You want to make it easier for people to navigate through your website. So your menu tab should be easy to use. It should be something that people can scroll down and so on. Nowadays, more and more people are using their mobile devices to, search for information or look at websites. Imagine if your entire website or your navigation is on Flash. There's no way they'll be able to go beyond your homepage. So you got to make sure that when someone goes to your website, that it's easy for them to go from your home page to your inner page or to your destination page. And it's more got to do with the kind of back-end system you use. So some of the most common platforms you can use are things like WordPress, which is a very good platform to build an information-based website. Okay. The next thing you got to look at is image. Don't just take any image and put on your website. Okay. If you got some professional images of your products, that can really add value. Sometimes we tend to just take images of our iPhone and upload to a website. It does that job, but it doesn't give the professional look. So if you're selling e-commerce, if you're selling physical products, it's really important that your images are nice and clear, having a nice white background. The image stands out. It makes a lot of difference. It's all about how confident you're making the person who's on your website to put their credit card and buy something from you. What also is important today is your website mobile friendly? Because you'll be surprised that the amount of traffic that goes to websites today through mobile device is amazingly high. Google came up with some stats a couple of months back which said that most people start browsing the internet on their physical computer, let's say from 9 in the morning. It peaks till 12. At 12 it drops off. At 2 in the afternoon it picks up again, and at 5 it just finishes off. Unlike mobile, where the traffic starts at 7 in the morning, at 12 o'clock it doesn't go down, it actually further increases, because you're out at lunch waiting for your food, you go onto a mobile and you're surfing. It doesn't stop at 5, it stops at 11 in the night. So imagine someone goes onto your website and they want either some simple information or they want to make a purchase. If they can't do it through your website, they're not going to go back to their computer and say, let me try it out. They might just go somewhere else and make a purchase. So you got to make sure your website is mobile friendly. Some of the other factors we tend to forget is, maybe, if you've been in business, what are the top 10 questions that people have about your product or a service. The things that you get asked day in and day out by your customers. It's a good thing to put that on your website. Things like, what happens if the product is not working, or, when can you get support, or what to do if something happens. So the most common questions that you have, you got to have a section within your website where people can simply go and say, okay, great, if I got a problem, I know how to contact, or what I'm supposed to do, and so on. So it's really important that you provide that information to people on your website. It just helps someone to take a decision, say, okay, great, that's solved my problem. I know that that's not an issue, so let me go ahead and make a purchase. And most importantly, people don't like to get sold. It's not about, if your website is just selling products and not taking a little bit of effort to educate people whether it's the right product, there's a strong chance that people won't buy from you. So don't just look at your website as a selling machine. you got to convince people. So the only way you can convince people on your website is by educating them as to why a specific product or a solution is good. So you got to maintain that balance as to, why should someone consider a specific product and why should they consider it from you. The other thing also is important is when someone goes onto your website, you got to make the text easy to understand, not too technical, and not, especially things like, using the right kind of fonts, making sure it is, is user friendly, people can read the content, and it's easy for them to take the next step and so on. So for example, if you're offering a free trial, you got to make sure that the trial is free, there is no credit card required, and so on. Otherwise, imagine you say it's a free trial, someone goes through the entire process, puts out all the information and says, by the way, you still need to put in your credit card details. You'll be surprised the amount of people who drop out at that stage from such websites. I mean, there's not just one factor that can help you improve your conversions, but it's small things that we tend to forget. Like for example, social media is becoming big, but a lot of e-commerce stores still do not have this option where on a product page you can simply share that product with a friend. The only thing most e-commerce stores today have is you can either add to a wish list or whatever it is. But what if you come across a website and you like the product and you would like to recommend that to a couple of your friends? If you have an option which says share this with a friend, that link of that email can be, or that page can be sent across to your friend. It's all about making it easier for people to take a decision on your website, or maybe to share the products that you offer with friends and family. Again, as I talked earlier, it's a great thing if you've got good testimonials, share it with people coming onto your website, because just having a text-based testimonial doesn't have so much of value. But the moment you put a face to a testimonial, automatically the value increases. So if you've got some good clients and if they're happy to get a testimonial for you, make sure that you add that onto your website. It just adds more value to the buying process. Video testimonials, getting a case study done is ideal. And most importantly is, you got to ask people for the information at the right time. Okay, if anyone comes to your website and the first thing you say, give us your information, it's going to be a bad user experience. Okay, you normally tend to ask information or ask people for their details when you've convinced them enough and they're happy to say, okay, this makes sense, I need some more information, or I'm happy to someone to give me a call. So make sure that you are not you're not kind of a closed door kind of a business where you got to get everyone's information first before you part with yours. Let's look at an example now. I just picked up one of these websites that deals with a lot of e-commerce products to do with cosmetics and so on. So in this particular website, they've got this massive logo or an image or a flash banner in between. Now it's good to have that, but then it needs to be something which adds value to your brand. So if it's a branding message, yes, it will. So if you've got these massive images on your website, I think you got to look at it by doing a bit of a testing. What if you change the image? Does it affect your bounce rate? Because a lot of times people come to your website and they're in a specific buying mode, and then you don't show them what they want. There's a strong chance they'll just hit the back button and go somewhere else. So what you got to look at is, if you're putting something right on your home page, like a large flash banner, does it add value to what you do, or is just simply trying to make the website look more pretty? Because if your bounce rate is high on your home page, then you know that you're not going to get a lot of sales. People come to your website whatever way you try to market them, and they will just go back. The other thing, an important thing, is about is how do people shop in your business. Some industries people shop based on brand, some based on categories, some based on price range, and so on. So you need to understand better. Do most of your potential customers would prefer searching based on brands or whether based on categories? It's all about making it user friendly so that they can exactly get the product where they want. Certain industries where we've seen when we design websites, we ask the customer, what is your ideal customer, or the people who buy from you, what do you think? Do they have a lot of time in hand, or are they computer savvy, or whatever it is? So if they are people who deal with industrial products and they are specific plumbers and all those things, you got to give exactly what they want. They know what they're searching for. That's all. Don't try to sell them different brands and so on. Sometimes when you design a website, you try to keep it a bit trendy, but imagine if people coming to your website have got no clue how to navigate through your website, it's not going to give anything unique. If you try to make it more creative, that's great, but then you got to think about your customers, not think about what you would like on a website, because end of the day they are the one who are going to spend money on your website. If it's difficult for them to navigate through your website, you're definitely not going to get a lot of sales. And I think that's the biggest challenge today with a lot of businesses. I've looked at a lot of companies that spend thousands of dollars on Google AdWords. They get a lot of click-through rates and everything, but then the end result is they're not really selling a lot, or even if they're selling, they have no clue where they're selling from. Okay. The other thing also is where we talked about sharing a product. It's a great thing where you allow people to give reviews for the product. That's great. But what about if you would like to share one of these products with a friend of yours? Either you have to go on top and copy the URL of that particular page, or you got to go and say, go to this website, search for this product. That's ideal. If there's a way of sharing a product with a friend, if you can do that on an e-commerce platform, that will really make things much more easier for someone to go and say, okay, have a look at this product. One of the other things also you got to look at is what information is about the fold. That means sometimes you have large graphics on your website, and the actual text or the content, someone needs to really scroll to see that information. So it's really important that you got to look at what's visible to most people when they go onto your website. If your actual information or your unique selling point is not visible, there's a strong chance that they would hit the back button and go somewhere else. And with e-commerce, it's really a challenge, because there's so many reasons that people can drop out from the buying process. Like having reviews is great. Having the ability to strike off the price and show this is a discounted price again helps. But not having a section within your website which says this is on sale, or this is the sale item, maybe that's a chance for you can further increase, because there are some buyers who always look out for specials or so on. So if you feel that within your industry it's driven by price and you can afford to have specials, you need to have a section within your categories or wherever which says your daily specials or weekly specials and so on. End of the day, all these process or all these things that you do, it's an ongoing process. You have to keep on changing it. You have to keep on fine-tuning to find out what works, what doesn't work. Like for instance, in this particular page, you literally are creating an urgency for someone to take a decision right now if you want the delivery by tomorrow. So if you're able to add these values onto your website, it only helps people to take a decision quicker and improve your conversions. Now unfortunately, if you got an e-commerce store and if it's got limitations, then you might have to skip some of these features. Or things like, providing good content for your customers, like, about how to use guides and all those things. Okay, now informations like that should be easily accessible. So for example, if someone buys a product from you, the email notification that goes with that product should give links to, your how to use guides or your support center and so on, so that they know that, because the moment you buy a product, you're expecting to get information, and then that email confirmation that goes out needs to have all those information so that people can actually go in and follow that instructions. Again, if you have different products or different categories, you got to make sure that your inner website addresses, the inner URLs, they are not only search engine friendly, but it is easy for someone to copy and paste or send a link to someone. And this is a case with a lot of e-commerce stores. You'll find that when you go to an inner page, it's got a string of characters which make no sense, and it's really difficult to explain to someone on the phone, or even if you're trying to type it across, it's extremely long. So you got to reduce your inner pages URL to make it search engine friendly, or provide search engine ready URL, so that's easy for someone to say, okay, this page has got something to do with face care packs. So ideally speaking, that page should read out as the domain name /face-care-packs. So it's easy for someone to say which page, and easy to someone to just forward it across to someone else. Using Facebook again is a good way of reaching out to people, but the problem with Facebook is that you got to understand that you can't just go to Facebook once a week or once a month. If you're using social media, you need to be there to react to it, because if you do not do that, then someone might go and say good or bad about your product, and if it takes you a week's time to go back and clarify it, it's too late, the damage is already done. So if you have a Facebook page, a good thing to do is make it as a two-way communication. Keep regular updates, share information about your industry. Give an incentive to your customers to go and express themselves about your service or the products on your Facebook page and so on. And I think that's what really works. So Facebook is more about letting people react with your business, and that reaction actually adds a lot of value. And you'll be surprised that today social media is supposed to be the new word of mouth. People tend to give more importance to other people's recommendations than the actual recommendations from the business owner. It's really important to use social media for your businesses, however big or small your business is. It's a way of letting people to react or to express their concerns or their experience about your product. And with all, whether it's Facebook or Twitter, you'll always have positive and negative feedbacks. But it's about how quickly you go back and try to clarify. That's more important. Just having a Facebook page or just having a Twitter account doesn't mean that you're active in social media. It's basically an engagement process, so you need to be there reacting constantly. It's a good way to track what's happening with competition, or if someone is having a bad time or had a bad experience using a specific product, it's a good time to go and give them suggestions, but not just go and say, okay, that product was crap, buy my product. So you got to use that platform. And you need to understand that that platform is more about listening to people than talking. So you use that platform and you see how people react. And occasionally when you go and express yourself, automatically people will start liking your brand, and thereby the traffic to your website will automatically increase. Just like blogs, a lot of people set up blogs, but 60% of them don't go beyond their third post. If you're going to be doing social media, you got to take serious note of it, and make sure that you're spending at least a couple of minutes a day on that, on your Facebook, on your Twitter, on your social media platform. There are tools available which will allow you to basically publish information across all those platforms, but having said that, you have to constantly monitor it. Some of the other things that I think you should look at is how to improve conversions are things like, having a telephone number. Now, it's really important to have a telephone number on a website, because that gives a person the confidence that tomorrow if something is wrong, they can simply pick up the phone and make, reach out to someone. But imagine if there's no telephone numbers, you might say, I don't know where this business is, or where they're located. A telephone number is a good way of adding more value and saying you're a genuine business and there are real people on the other end of the line. The other thing also is that when someone comes onto your website, they would be traveling within your inner different pages of your website. You got to make sure that you don't take them from one kind of design layout to a totally different design layout and so on. You got to make sure that they feel that they're going through the same website and not multiple websites and so on. So the way you design your website, or the way you make the navigation process, it has to be really seamless and easy for someone to go from one step to the other. So even if you're using, let's say, a landing page for your AdWords, make sure that your landing page doesn't look totally different from what your website is. Otherwise, all of a sudden the person will feel they've come to something totally different and might be hesitant to go beyond that page. The other important thing also is it's great to have information, but sometimes too much of information could have a reverse effect. It's like you take real estate agents today. They have reduced the number of images that they put on their website listing, because imagine if they put up 25 photographs of a property. You have a look at it, you like 23 of them, but for some reason you do not like the view from the backyard or from from the back of the house. You may not call up the real estate agent. But imagine if there are only 4 photographs on that listing. You're keen to know more about it. You're going to send an inquiry to the real estate agent. So it's really important to maintain the balance as to how much of information are you giving to people, and is it enough for them to react. Okay, it's common sense. If the buying process of your business cannot happen online, it's a good thing to get people to call you up or send you an inquiry, because your website is basically a one-way traffic, whereas if someone calls you up, you're able to maybe use your sales skill or whatever to maybe convince them better. So if you're not an e-commerce store, and if your website is about providing someone a service, or someone needs to still contact you, it's important that the call to action is to get people to ring you up or fill an inquiry form. I might be running a couple of minutes beyond 1 o'clock, so please bear with me. It's really important to understand what your customer wants rather than what you want to put on your website. So if you're going to be having, a lot of people coming onto your website and leaving from your home page, then maybe you're not giving them the right kind of information. So it's really important that the information that is there is enough for them to take the next step. The next step would be calling you up, or the next step would be to fill an inquiry form and so on. Okay, just bear with me. For some reason it's not going beyond the next slide. I guess this is a problem with sometimes with webinars where your slide really gets stuck. Are you still able to hear me, or is it just the slides that I'm having issues going further? Okay, great, thanks. Okay, apologies for the delay. I might just restart the presentation to get it back. Just give me a minute. Okay, we're almost back. Okay, what is important is that your homepage especially needs to have a very clear call to action, a very clear headline telling people that they've come to the right kind of place. So for instance, if you're dealing with web design, okay, what really needs to happen is that when someone comes onto your website, it talks about what kind of a company you are, whether you are an agency style web design company, and what's your unique selling point. It's the catch line for your business. You got to make sure that that gets people's attention. But imagine if your website starts with text all over, it just gets more and more boring. Okay, make sure that on your website there's an option for people to share the information, so they can either follow you on Facebook or on Twitter. They can share information. If you got videos, a great thing to do is to put videos from YouTube onto your website. Okay, and give the chance for people to share the information that they have on your website with others and so on. What also is important is, depending upon the kind of industry you're into, it'll be a good thing to have different kind of landing pages. So imagine if you're dealing with a B2B and a B2C scenario. So the business requirements for a B2B is totally different from retail customers. So if you're having such kind of business activities, make sure that you're taking people to the right kind of landing page. You're showing them information which is relevant to what you do. It's really important, and this really is more important when you're actually doing things like Google AdWords, is that the landing page is customized to the person they're looking at. Okay. One of the other important thing is that you've got to be really precise, because when someone goes onto the internet searching for information, the first website they might spend 10 minutes, the first search result. The next result may be 2 minutes. The third result might be 20 seconds. So don't try to just put in as much information as you know about what you do. Make sure that there's enough for someone to react to your website and take the next step. And this all can be improved over a period of time. So you have to go and test the market and see how people react to it. Okay, it's really important that if you've got a unique selling point, it's right on top. Okay, you don't expect people to go through a couple of pages to realize that you're the right company to deal with. So as much as possible, try to keep as much little search that people need to do on your website. Don't push a lot of information to them, because then it just gets too boring and people lose focus. Thanks to mobile devices and so on, we as website users have become extremely impatient. So people don't have time. You would love to give them a lot of information, but then if you don't strike the balance properly, you're just going to lose out on them. What also is important is when someone makes a purchase from you or wants to buy something from you, try to make sure that you're not asking too many questions. The more questions you ask, it increases the number of steps. Okay, the most basic fundamental about e-commerce is when someone wants to buy a product from you, keep your mouth shut, take the money. You can always do the relationship building after you've got the first sale. But imagine if you ask people, 10 different questions as to what brought them to the website, what they made them buy the website, product from their website, and what would they recommend, and so on. It's just gonna make it more and more painful. So try to make sure that you're not, even while subscribing to newsletters, make sure that you're asking not a lot of information. All you need from someone is their first name and their email address. Don't ask them things like what's the size of your company, what's your designation, how many employees. I mean, all that is good, but then not at a stage when you're trying to acquire someone new. Most important is with websites is simple, easy to understand terms and conditions. Like, for example, if you look at the terms and conditions for things like insurance and so on, it runs into 50 pages. How many of us actually read those terms and conditions? But the only thing is that with things like insurance and so on, we know that over the last couple of years what gets covered, what doesn't get covered. So we tend to ask the right kind of questions most of the time. But if you have an e-commerce store, what is really important is for people to understand, what is your refund policy, what's your privacy policy, what happens if there's if something breaks, or how do you get support and so on. Okay, and it's all about making it easier for people to understand. The more you confuse people with your legal terms, the more scared people are going to be to take a decision. If you're doing Google AdWords, the way to reduce your AdWords campaign is to try to get more specific. Don't go after generic keywords. Or if you're doing campaigns, make sure that you're using negative keywords, making sure that you're targeting people at the right time. If you're providing a service where people don't search for your services on weekends, don't spend your money on weekends on AdWords. If you know that your customers were only searching for your services in the evening, okay, make sure that you are advertising only in the evening so that you get more conversions and you get more qualified people coming onto your website. And end of the day, as you manage your AdWords campaign properly, your cost per click will automatically go down. What also is important is that the call to action, the better the call to action, the better the conversions. As simple as that. So you got to make sure that the call to action could be so someone to just pick up the phone and call up. That's the easiest thing to do. Or to fill in a small inquiry form with 2 or 3 fields. So the more easy you make it for them, the more inquiries you're going to get. And as I said, it's like there's no one magic rule for increasing your conversions. It all depends upon what kind of industry you're into, what kind of customers you have, and what kind of products you provide. I've kind of tried to cover as much as possible in the last 60 minutes, but there's a lot to improving your conversions on your website. If you have an existing website and if you have the same issues or whatever it is, feel free to give me a call or send me an email. I'm happy to give you a free insight as to what you can do with your website and so on. Also, if you want a copy of the presentation, just shoot me an email and I will send you the webinar slides as well. Thank you very much for your time, and hope to see you guys next time.